So like everything else in conversion, and we had an earlier speaker who alluded to it with the brand marketer and the data nerd, there's sort of a conflict between how to test and what to test. And a lot of times the problem in conversion optimization is we don't think outside the box, and we're far too incremental in what we do. And we take little tiny steps rather than going for the big, hairy, audacious goal. And so I'm just going to pull it out. Who has a sailboat? Who wants to win? Let's do it. Come on, come on. Who has a sailboat? Raise your hand. Let's just get it done. Sailboat, sailboat. Everybody with a sailboat up in the front now. We're going to take a quick picture and we're going to do this. Come on, I saw at least one sailboat. That's efficiency and thinking outside the box. Come on, there's one. Come on, more sailboats. Let's get a group hug up here. And quite likely no one's going to get to 10 because some people are in their hotel room, some people are out at the booths. So my challenge to the Conversion XL team is give it to whoever gets the most. And that gives all the rest of you losers a chance to catch up. So, is this it? Are these all the sailboats? Come on. Come on, we must get more. Oh, wait. Are you? No. Okay, well, this is 6. Can anyone raise me a 6? You got a half day to do it. So make that so. Does someone have a picture-taking device? All right. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So someone figure out tonight how to get 7 or 8. So let's go with that. Sometimes having a big list or a big microphone is not a bad way to go. I mean, I love personalization, but it's also good to have materiality. Let's talk a bit about the considered purchase. I liken it a little bit to dating, and it comes down to goals. What are your goals? And we'll get into that and talk about it. But distressingly, a lot of people in our industry, even in B2C, treat conversion optimization like Tinder, or even worse, like Grindr. You know, it's very transactional. And sometimes there's a brand hit with that. And if you're actually trying to do what, I actually want to shout out for Chris Out. He brought up, what is phenomenal, which is lifetime value of customer optimization. Very, very similar to B2B marketing. In that I'm trying to optimize the whole enchilada, not over-optimize one small piece of it. So we'll talk a little bit about it. We'll just dive right into it. So I'm just a person that's been around for a while. I'm not an expert. I'm just like a professional student. I just keep studying this stuff over and over and over again. Maybe eventually I'll get it mostly right. But that's kind of the mantra for conversion, right? Lather, rinse, repeat, iterate, iterate. We've done a lot of B2B technology. This is just the small stuff. But we also have always worked with a lot of retailers. And there are some similarities for retailers that are trying to optimize lifetime value of customer and thinking through how they do that and how the data sets work. And I love the two parts of it because not only can B2C lessons be applied to B2B, but there's some B2B lessons that will come back to B2C. And maybe we can hit some of that in our conversation. So we all understand this, right? Two kinds of people, those who can extrapolate from incomplete data. Great conversion experiment. So this is kind of, is this the graphic that Tim Nash's book used to have? Anyway, I wonder where I got that graphic from. I certainly didn't make it myself. But once upon a time, we all had this concept of what conversion was going to be look like, and that's these people are out there. They come to our website, and then they fill out a form, and they just become customers. Or they go in a shopping cart, and then they buy. And I kind of think that's sort of up there in mythology with Sasquatch and Santa Claus and leprechauns. It's not actually the way much of the world works. And to really get on the right side of that equation, we've got to figure out what is it that we want from our marketing efforts, and are we optimizing globally for that? Not many people are going to get promoted to being chief marketing officer by optimizing web forms, unless you work for an affiliate marketing company. In which case, your incentive there is what are the crappiest leads we can get away with selling and still have people come back to us? Kind of the same model as Google AdWords, I suppose, but it's what's the least we have to give someone and still have them come back? But that's really not a great way to build a relationship long term, and it's not really a great way to optimize the value in something. I mean, if you approach a relationship with what's the least I have to do to kind of have this person not move out of my place, it's probably not going to be a very fulfilling relationship. So the web conversion rate, and a couple other folks have brought this up, is ultimately not your goal. Your goal is probably increased sales. Maybe it's increased retention. So it is a useful ratio to look at, but it's one of many conversion rates between now and the end goal. So in B2B, and sometimes this is true in B2C as well, often you'll find there's not a single decision maker. There are a lot of people with their hand in the pie, longer conversion cycle. The value of leads can be all over the map, and they tend to be relationship driven. And this can also be true with a high dollar consumer purchase. If somebody's selling a luxury automobile or a Viking range or something that is multiple thousands of dollars. And so one of the key things when you're dealing with longer sales cycles, multiple touch points, possibly multiple humans, is thinking through how do I tie together the data sets. And in the B2C world, that means moving beyond the first sale to the lifetime value. And in B2B, it's making sure you're integrated with all the other data sets. One of the problems with web traffic is very few of those folks, unless you're selling to micro businesses, are ready to buy when they hit the website or even when they fill out a web form. They go and they sit in an email marketing system, which now is fancily called marketing automation, and then 9 months later, some recently minted MBA wearing the hat of king of webinars claims 100% credit for the lead and overwrites the attribution cookies. So we have to be thinking through all those data points, and we have to track at a high level of granularity. We'll go into a little bit more of that, but we need to be thinking post-click and post-web. This is also true for those in e-com who have physical stores and are trying to track store locations, or if you're trying to drive traffic to a physical place, you've got some of those issues. You also have these issues if you're generating leads, but they still take a while to close and they're going to a sales team. So it's even more critical, I think, in these larger sales cycles to be thinking through all the four basic types of conversion optimization. There are two out there that are qualitative types, there are two that are quantitative. I love the word heuristic, it sounds great. It's distressing how few people out there outside of rooms like this, you say heuristic and they go, wow, that sounds like really sophisticated. It's like, no, it's just a checklist, best practices. And it's kind of guaranteed that it's mostly, 6 of the 10 may work for you, and 4 may not. But it's just sort of what we all think are best practices. But it's still useful. It's a place to start. And then persona-based, that where you're, or the folks behind the glass mirrors, or watching people and all that. So that's qualitative, but it's useful. And then the two basic quantitative types, just very simple split testing, and then the more complicated multivariate. A lot of times in B2B, you never get enough data to go multivariate. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Sometimes the search inventory is very constrained. I'm a huge fan of the persona-based stuff when you come to B2B, particularly because you might have multiple fingers in the pie, and you might have multiple personas, and they're touching it at different layers of the customer journey. And so you need to be thinking through your content and be sure that you've got something that talks to all the main personas. And it's a lot different sometimes than in B2C, where you can just pick your best persona and run with it. Because a lot of things in B2B, you may start with the HR department if you're selling HR software, but ultimately it also has to get approved by finance. And HR and finance mindsets are sometimes a little different. So one other thing to keep in mind is every single step of that buyer's journey, or to use older words, funnel, has a conversion event and a bunch of micro conversion events. So when you're doing optimization for a long sales cycle, you've got to map all of those out and figure out how are you going to track all that and try not to lose the data in the process. And so, different kinds of keywords, top funnel, bottom funnel, require different landing pages and a new close. And so you're always in B2B kind of thinking, how do I get to the next date? How do I get to the next date? How do I get to the next date? And in B2C, and particularly the transactional grinder affiliate-like side of B2C, a lot of people burn bridges. They get that first close, and you have a great first date, and then you look around and they're already moving their stuff into your apartment. And it's kind of creepy. And so it's sort of like, what is the goal? And the goal here is continue to build the relationship and don't try to sell too hard too fast. So it can be almost the exact opposite of info marketing or squeeze pages or things like that. You need to figure out how to keep getting more and more data, but this is drip marketing, and you got to track that along. So for each micro conversion, it really comes down to how do you make people happy on this next new date? And a lot of people fail, and there's a big drop-off. And once you get the web form or they hit your website, you know who they are. There may be 12 or 15 steps beyond that where new people are introduced, and kind of thinking through how are we going to track all that. And the attrition down here is just atrocious. This is, I think that actually is some serious decisions data, but the numbers required and the length of the sales cycle, I mean, you need a lot of numbers on the front end to move it. So I'm just going to dive into some actual data, because this is a room of folks who that doesn't scare. I mean, data is a 4-letter word, yes, and it does lead to another 4-letter word, which is called work. But ultimately, that leads to a 5-letter word called money. So it's probably worth doing. So this one is actually not a B2B outfit, but an internet retailer we worked with. They had a mid to high 8-figure revenue online operation, had optimized most of the pieces of it, but their data sets were still a little bit siloed, and they didn't have the granularity of capturing the referral and web traffic coming in. And so they added granularity to the front end of the analytics, and then they actually tracked that all the way through in their eCRM, their email system, and figured out, well, who rebuys? Who's a good customer? Who comes back? And guess what they learned? They were paying Retail Me Not far too much money. Coupon clippers are amazingly not brand loyal. Who'd have thunk it? So one of the interesting things you find a lot of times when you combine data sets is stuff that looked pretty good on the front end from a customer acquisition perspective actually isn't bringing you the customers you want. In fact, you'd kind of like those people to shop at a competitor, because they'll bring them down and destroy their profit margins. So integrating these data sets can be really, really powerful and figure out how things work. We see that a lot with affiliate marketing. Not that affiliate marketing is a bad thing, but for that traffic source, you need to figure out how are you going to build a relationship with them so these people that have already demonstrated, they're always looking for a deal, how do you give them deals without destroying your profitability? Because it's not like they're going to wake up one morning and say, I don't care about deals anymore. That's their persona. So another outfit. This one was actually kind of interesting. It was B2 mid-market. So online can be really important to them, but it's not always the lead actor in their movie. So if you're selling to consumers, digital stuff can be, the Arnold Schwarzenegger of your movie. B2 small business looks a lot alike. As you move up the chain with larger and larger purchases to larger and larger customers, all the stuff we do with websites starts to recede. First to the level of supporting actor, and then like if your clients are federal agencies and top 50 money center banks, a lot of digital is just the Greek chorus. I mean, it's just kind of trying to make things flow, and it becomes very hard to track. But this is a case, B2B mid-market, and the CEO and the CMO had a brilliant idea. They decided, we need to get conversion rates up. We've been listening to all these talks. Our conversion rate's lower than it should be, and so we're going to bonus our marketing team on increasing conversion rates. And the interesting thing here is that these are sort of just some of their core keywords and what they were getting on them and spend and clicks and leads. And we got to get the 2% conversion rate. Well, you know how you do that? You kill one keyword in your paid search campaign. It's not the right thing to do, but that's why conversion rate shouldn't in and of itself be a goal. It's a ratio, it's a metric, it's a dial. But here's this team, our client, and they're saying, could you help us get our bonus? It's like, Yeah, I can do it tomorrow. I just turn on that keyword and you got a conversion rate. But the problem is leads would drop by 28% and cost per lead would go up by 6%. So we got to be watching all of these things in B2B. You know, conversion rate is not in and of itself the holy grail. Another client that kind of showcases what you got to watch for and why you have to track traffic sources at a very, very granular level. Return on advertising spend by search engine. So, you know, we always get is it even worth, you know, bothering with Bing? And the answer is almost always yes. Because you know what? It's a less efficient market, and your competitors aren't there. In fact, we recently were under the hood, and we helped get them fired with a firm that is an internet retailer. They advertise, you know, that they're paid search retail experts. They were managing a 7-figure a month Google spend and a $300,000 a month Bing spend. We don't often see $300,000 a month Bing spends. We do on occasion. It had been 80 days since a human had touched the Bing spend. And I'm not going to name the name of this firm down in the South that did that, but you know, they did what most people do with Bing, which is every 90 days you do an import and you like scurry around for a few hours trying to like make the Google plastic bag fit Bing, and then you spend all the rest of your time back in Google. And you know, at some point, 300,000 is real spend. Even 10,000 a month of Bing is real spend. And the nice thing there is it is less efficient. So that means there's more gold to be found because your competitors aren't there. So definitely consider giving Bing a look. And in fact, consider running Bing with a separate team. You know, have Bing be the thing you run in-house, or put Bing with one agency and Google with another. Keeps both agencies working a hell of a lot harder, I'll tell you that. And that way, if anything ever blows up, you have an immediate failover. So just a crazy tactic, but sometimes worth trying. Well, in this case, we'd integrated the paid search data into the CRM. We're looking at conversions all the way down the funnel, and Bing wasn't converting to leads as well as Google. So the client says, why don't we just turn it off? It's a pain in the keister. It doesn't seem to be working. Bing's just a bunch of consumer folks anyway who weren't smart enough to take it off of the computer they bought. You know, probably a bunch of subprime folks. Why are you even there? So we just, you know, we looked at data. It's amazing what it showed. And in this case, that shouldn't say Yahoo. So there's an error. But the conversion rate was lower. The cost per lead was higher. There weren't as many leads. But the interesting thing was these people were actually converting to sale. And so it was actually hugely profitable compared to Google. So there's these nuggets that lie in there, and you have to maintain the granularity of the tracking. And what's tough about that is your data is going into another system than the one you're usually doing when you're looking at conversion. So you're still dealing with conversion a lot of times on the website and the landing pages and the search engines, but you're having to pull your data from multiple layers down in the process. Anyone here measure success by how well the landing pages are converting? And we had a case, you know, there's a great talk yesterday about how web designers do everything just right. Or maybe that wasn't what he said. But we were thrilled at first. Like, you know, every time we hear there's a new website and we're not deeply involved in it, it's like, oh crap, they're going to screw everything up, and guess who gets blamed? The people working on conversion. You know, it's like, so we thought we were hosting. And then we're going like, amazingly, this new landing page actually performed better. But it was bringing the wrong people to the website. So just because something is having an early conversion event that looks better, you have to watch that. I mean, I like it too. If you really want to increase the conversion rate, it's real easy. You just put up an AdWord saying free bags of money, and you put a landing page that says free bags of money, just give me your data, and then you don't ship a free bag of money. But you get a lot of data, and did we win? We converted. I mean, it's unethical. We burned the brand. There's not going to be a second date, but we had a really high conversion rate. You want to be getting the right people to your website. And so sometimes things that look good, you can't just call it a win and move on. In B2B, you have to kind of watch it and follow it through the process and be ready to make a quick rollback or course correction. Another thing to consider, your best conversions are not always on the web, particularly in B2B. But we've also seen this in B2C, where One retailer that is selling a fairly complicated product that sometimes has services attached, and their best products are actually in the low thousands of dollars. There was another agency, I won't say who it is, but it rhymes with Urkel, and they never asked the client what % of your sales come over the phone. And so they promptly turned off all the keywords that they didn't see conversion events for because they were thinking web only. And yet the conversions that drove phone calls were the high margin, high profit conversions. So you need to align your conversion optimization with how your sales model works and where your best leads were. In this case, it was interesting. It was a healthcare client. They were entirely focused on the web. They had a phenomenal conversion rate of clicks to web leads. And it was a fairly high dollar considered purchase. And the goal, though, was to get someone on the phone. So we tanked their conversion rate. We took it down to 11%. So that's, who likes to say, woohoo, I cut the conversion rate by more than half. But what we did is we put like a bigger phone number, much bigger phone number. We put your best deals are only available via the phone. And you know what? Their sales went up. Because guess what humans can still do better? Close deals and add high margin attach rate things. So, if you can get them to have a chat or a phone call or a higher intimacy event and put some value on the table. So much, it's kind of the conversation we have in conversion between, adding benefit or reducing friction. We're so focused on reducing friction and making it easy to buy on the web, sometimes we forget that if we actually add benefit on the higher cost sales channels, the benefit they'll add in terms of margin, scoping it correctly so it doesn't blow up in the face or have a return, those kinds of things can sometimes more than outweigh the additional cost of going to a sales rep. So it doesn't have to occur on your website. Track phone calls. Chat is a really big thing, not just in B2C, but in B2B. But you need to track that. We've had cases where people, because the data is so siloed, say, oh, our web leads are just really sucking. It's like, well, yeah, because you skimmed the cream off of the milk and moved it over to chat, and how's that doing? So, it's a different environment. You got to be ready for it. Maintain all your referral codes in your marketing automation system, or even all the way down to Salesforce.com or your Salesforce system. Think about a click. It's an early conversion. What can you learn from it? With reverse IP lookup or things like that. We've got actually a sponsor here that's in the session cam space. One of the neat things about that is you can capture data on partially completed forms. So, we had a session on forms. If your hippo absolutely insists on a long form, we'll start off with a really tiny form. And then when they've completed that, take them to the longer form and put some data on that you can use to play Sherlock or Monk and figure out who was that person most likely. How do we kick off an event around it? One other thing in B2B that works really, really well and makes digital look good is I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with CMOs, and they say, I kind of like web traffic and stuff, but it's so early. I really prefer email because that's free. And I think, well, no, actually your email list was built by the previous CMO who got fired, and now you're milking it. So, in B2C, the ad agencies go, well, I don't like search because they're just claiming credit for all the brand work we did, and that would have happened anyway. But it's not really true because you can separate about brand traffic versus non-brand traffic. If the creative types knew how to find their way under an analytics hood, they understand that. But in B2B, the website stuff typically is undervalued, often by as much as a full order of magnitude, because it is early customer journey, at least first contact, and it does take a while before something happens. One of the ways we can get back into that stack and get some credit is ensuring that we're doing trackable, conversion-oriented remarketing off of the marketing automation, off of the emails. In not all cases, but in a lot of cases, there's no conversion-focused retargeting happening on the email landing pages. And sometimes it's because the main website is in a CMS over here, and all the landing pages for email are sitting over here in Marketo or some other system. And meanwhile, there's someone over here who sits in a cube and owns display ads, remarketing, and maybe search, and there's someone over here who runs email. And they might even talk, they might go out to lunch, they might be best buds, but they're coming from a different budget. So if this person's sending out an email, what happens when you click on an email? You go to a piece of HTML. Zappos figured out ages ago that, if you didn't buy that pair of shoes, it was going to follow you around for a while, as you traverse the internet. Well, if you're inviting somebody to a webinar and they hit the landing page and they don't sign up, why wouldn't you have retargeting and remarketing following them around saying, please sign up, please sign up? If they do sign up, the message is different. The message is webinar approaching, webinar approaching, webinar approaching. If they signed up and then it looks like they didn't attend the webinar, you can still see it on demand, following them around the internet. You know what that does? It kind of elegantly puts digital right back into the tracking stack. Now, not only does it increase conversion rates, but it actually has additional data points there. Because if someone was valuable enough to hit your website in the first place, the more times you can touch them, the better. Now, where this all gets difficult is attribution. And it's an issue that's never going to go away, but you got to argue about it, and you got to get it on the table, and you got to figure out how we're going to try to track this stuff. And first touch is not the right answer, but last touch is not the right answer either. So, it's some weighting. Last touch probably needs, higher weighting, revenue being the best weighting or lifetime value of customer being the best rating, but have that conversation. Otherwise, you're not going to globally optimize. We run a real problem in the optimization space that we take one level of that customer journey and we over-optimize it. And you know what? That screws up everything else. We've got to be thinking kind of full funnel or full stack optimization. And even in B2C, because again, it's unless you're a divorce attorney or, selling weddings at the wedding planning at the Knot, where it is a transaction and you probably won't be getting a lot of repeat business from that particular customer. Most of us are in businesses where we'd like to sell that person something again. And so we have to be thinking about that and planning our conversion around how we're going to track that. I guess we could just go, if there's time, we can go to questions. Thank you.